Well, my father went to JOEYS in 1923, but then he had a family of 4 girls, so none of his girls could go to JOEYS. But all my Barrett cousins from Gadooga, 5 of them went there. And so I kept hearing stories about JOEYS. And when our boys were born, they were booked into JOEYS, and I think must have been the best 10 years of my life when our boys were there, because it was a wonderful experience. I was born and bred out the back of Brewarrina and Burke. I married Richard and went 100 miles further west. Most of the girls tried to come east. And so when we arrived at the college, and it was just before we even arrived at the college, 2 girls that I'd gone to school with at Loretto Kirribilli heard that we were coming, and they said, well, we've got some clothes we can hand down to you. We've got some jumpers and blazers and things. And I thought that was terrific. And those jumpers even got handed down to our next boy and one of our cousins as well. So that was our first experience. Oh, the memories I have of the chapel are just beautiful. I can remember the boys singing, the Year 9 boys singing. My mother and father had their 50th wedding anniversary. I think it was 1984, and the 3 grandsons there. And the boys of Year 9 sang the Mass. And it still brings goosebumps to me when I go to the chapel and hear the boys singing. It's just one of my best memories. The kids also formed very good friendships with the city boys, and that was terrific, because the city families, not just the boys, but sometimes even their families would come and stay with us, because we were 100 miles from Burke and we had shearers' huts and cottages, so that the families could stay there and all join in together with riding motorbikes and horses and all that sort of thing, swimming in the water hole and that sort of thing. And some of the brothers used to come and stay too, and we used to enjoy that. They were great times. Yeah. Oh, well, it's lovely. It's lovely for us to be able to go down and to have a grandson playing in the first in the rugby. Well, he's the captain actually this year, and he was also played cricket, so we could go down and stay, have a lovely friendship with the other families. It was interesting. One of the games of cricket we were at earlier in the year, the cricket was actually washed out, so the umpires kept going out and saying no, it's off, but the families were still staying there in case the game started. So we got talking, this other grandmother and I got talking, and her grandson had been brought up from the 16As, and her grandson's name was Hugh, and my grandson's name was Hugh. So the coach thought that was very interesting that we had these two grandsons named Hugh in the same team. Then we got talking, and we realised that we must have known each other, because she said she came from Brewarrina, and I said, well, that's where I came from. And then we looked at each other and I said, oh, no, I know who you are. You're Pammy Coleman. She said, yes, and you're Toni Barrett. And we hadn't seen each other for 70 years. And so that was, the coach was so impressed or excited, I suppose, that he took our photos then and put it in the newsletter. So I still see, she comes from Dubbo, so it was great, because after all these years, now we've both come from Dubbo and we see each other now again, so it's a lovely connection. Only for our 2 grandsons being called Hugh, we wouldn't have come together again. So that was a very good connection. JOEYS was invented for country boys boarding for, I think, way back in the 1880s or whenever it was, and I think about that, and I think about all the families that I know who've had past ancestors at JOEYS, and I think because you're going from a country to a city boarding school, and there's all these other children there that come from the city as well, and I think it's not just the school thing. I think the city country thing goes further than that. I think it's a wider thing now, where some children don't know where the milk comes from. They think it comes out of a carton. Well, that's the good thing about places like JOEYS, that you can get the children up there and they can see for themselves. They ride a motorbike and they ride a horse and they see a cow and all that, and sheep and all that sort of thing. And it's a terrific experience, and it was up to us country people to get those families out as well, as because their hospitality to us was so good. And I think in the years going forward from now, I think it's going to be more important for the country families to be able to get the city families out as well, even in busloads, I think. Yes. There's a couple of boys that thought they could ride motorbikes, but it'd been wet, and they slipped into a bog and tipped the motorbikes over. Luckily, we didn't have any bad accidents, but they calmed them down for a while. And I can remember another one at the waterhole. Brother Bennett was with us, and one of the Sigrees boys, he was only a little fella then, and he'd come up with his family, and he hadn't started at JOEYS, and he was covered in mud at the waterhole, and we'd just been there with a fire and making billy of tea and things, and after a while, this Sigrees boy, I think it was Michael, was covered in mud, and Brother Bennett couldn't bear it any longer, so he went and got the cold billy of tea and brought him over and rubbed him down with this cold tea to clear all the mud off him. I think I've got a photo of that somewhere. No, he had some good times. It was great. I think the city parents, a lot of the city parents are more, what do we say? I think they look towards the Boys from the Bush program more than country people, because the city people, and I've had some of the mothers say this to me themselves, they want bush boys to come to the city too, to board at JOEYS. So it needs to get out there, and it's good. I know that, and I know my daughter, she works for it too, and some fundraising, and they have a stall at the spring fair for the Boys from the Bush, and it's very heavily looked after out here, especially in Dubbo. And I know the Lawlers and the Duffys and those fellas, they all donate to it and help run things. I think it's a wonderful thing, and I think it's really good to be called that, Boys from the Bush, because that's what they are, and that's the effect they take down to the city. Yeah.